Hello everyone and welcome back. Let's talk about Geovax and Siga. I want to give you an update. Last weekend we talked about this, about getting in early, notified everyone on Twitter and in the Patreon about getting in low Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You've had the opportunity, and over the weekend this ran now on Friday. I said you might want to take some off the table. Let's take another look as to whether or not that was a good call, because this did find support at about 250. It dropped significantly after I did that video, and then it found support and it's been continuing to run. Now, what's the risk here? Because we do have that earnings coming up, and Geovax is looking a little bit weaker and a lot more short interest. There could be a massive squeeze if this drops down. I believe the shorts are going to cover 381% short interest. We're going to be covering it all in this video. So about a week ago, the World Health Organization declared a public health emergency of international concern and made a set of recommendations. And since then, Siga's CEO, Dr. Philip Gomez, did an interview with Bazinga and talked about the treatment plan that he has. They talked about the vaccine, which isn't within their company. Another company does that. But they have a treatment pill that you take twice daily called Monkeypox, and for 14 days. And they have the approval in Europe to be able to issue this, baseline funding through the government and the Strategic National Reserve. And they've got a stockpile there. They have already filled the stockpile with this Monkeypox, and it is able to be used for monkeypox, but was made for smallpox with a lot of paperwork that doctors have to do. So the shelf life is 7 years, and over the past 2 years, they've delivered about 112.5 million. We're going to take a look at the updates because monkeypox is still very relevant. Now, if you're not familiar with Geovax, Geovax is a clinical stage biotech company that's developing human vaccines and immunotherapies to address unmet medical needs in cancer and infectious diseases. Now, both of these companies are very, very important right now because they are running up significantly. But Geovax, I want you guys to be aware, that is the one that is riskier to get in, to follow all the hype. If you're hearing anything about jumping in, or you're just seeing these massive percentage gains, you know, last week was really the opportunity to get in, but you can mitigate your risk if you set a stop loss by entering low. And what is that? What is low with it this high? It is 36 times price to sales right now. Now, let's just talk a little bit about monkeypox vaccine, because the vaccine is basically, the factory is shut down and they're having to ramp it up, and it's threatening global supplies. The WHO organization came out and said that not everyone will need to be vaccinated. So I'm not really focused. I mean, that is also an area where you can make an investment. The vaccine side, I'm looking at the treatment side, and I'm looking at Geovax. Now, California, Illinois, New York State, San Francisco, I mean, this thing is spreading, and, you know, I'm not an expert that I could tell you how bad it is, but I could imagine that if it continues to spread, that there could be an announcement of a federal emergency. That will be something you need to watch out for. Now, Europe expects more monkeypox-related deaths. Now, last week we didn't have any deaths. Now we have about 5+ deaths right now. So you can see that as people start dying, there's going to be a little bit more attention that this gets. So there's also this article by Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and if you scroll down here, it shows you that Monkeypox, the antiviral, highly effective drug, is sitting in the Strategic National Stockpile, but many healthcare providers are still having a hard time getting the medication. Do we have the vaccine? Yes. Are we getting it distributed to everyone? No. Does everyone have to take the vaccine? Not according to the World Health Organization. Do we have Monkeypox? Do we have the treatment? Yes. Is there logistics concerns? Yes. And are we getting it to everyone that needs it? No. So this does result in the ability to continue to spread. This is by the New England Journal of Medicine. And the reason I point this out is a question you want to ask yourself is, how is this getting transmitted? Because we want to understand how serious it is and whether or not we can control it. Do we have the tools to control it? Transmission was suspected to have occurred through sexual activity in 95% of the persons infected. So I would say that 95% is a large number. If we could just get people to limit their sexual partners, the areas that I'm asking myself, if I'm looking for this to run, how long will it run? We don't have a federal emergency that was declared. The next thing I'm looking at is, do we have the tools to control it, and are we utilizing those tools properly? And I would say, because we do have a vaccine, because we do have a treatment, because we can control the number of partners that we sleep with, and that this is basically considered an STD. Let's talk about Siga, because Siga has a revenue source, and that's important because Geovax does not. They are really burning cash, and they're spending more cash than what they're making, but they are secure with the cash that they have through the end of this year. They just did an equity raise. Now, Siga does have this contract with the government, and on a 3-year average, they typically make approximately $100 million, and that's important to understand. Now, their earnings is going to be at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, August 4th, so be sure to tune into that. I will be summarizing what happens in that, and their financials. They have strong financials. They are profitable. They have a dividend that they just issued out, and they're doing share buybacks. In 2018, you can see this massive, almost $500 million here, and we know that the shelf life of this is 7 years, so I don't think it would take 7 years to replace everything in the Strategic National Reserve. They would probably do that, I would imagine, to some extent over a period of time, but you can see on an annual basis that they make well over $100 million a year. Now, the challenge here is they are reliant on government funding, but it looks like they are receiving attention, and the Strategic National Reserves aren't going anywhere. There are 12 strategic stockpiles that are in secret locations throughout the United States, but when COVID happened, it really put a lot of attention on these strategic national stockpiles, and a lot of people were asking, why don't we have PPE in there, because that was a major concern last time. So now this strategic national stockpile is getting a lot of attention. Now let's take a look at the financials for Geovax, because this is in annual buckets too, and they barely make $1 million on an annual basis, and you can see that that number has been declining through 2021. Now, another thing I like to look at, and we're going to be switching to talk about Siga right now. I want to talk about TPOXX and the FDA website. FDA has a website for monkeypox response, and they're keeping updates on here. If you refresh this every day and you're either trading or investing, either one of these, you could get the updates to understand why it's being volatile in the share price. I believe the Siga price pulled back because of this article on the 29th. This was last Friday. There was a pullback to almost $13. And for those of you that have this, or you got in at that point because you knew that nothing was going to distract you from buying this low, there are currently no human data demonstrating the efficacy of TPOXX for treatment of monkeypox, but we already know this, and I believe, and this isn't a fact, this is what I believe. I haven't filled out the paperwork, I haven't gotten this, so I don't understand the process completely, but what I believe from what I've listened to, that they need to collect this data and understand the efficacy of TPOXX in human trials, and they just haven't issued it to enough people with monkeypox to understand how this is impactful, that it's been passed for smallpox, and they are working on doing that, and that's part of the paperwork process and logistics. Now, more than $1 billion in contract value awarded by the U.S. government. When you hear about this contract and that huge $500 million that showed up in 2018, that's what it's about. It's about keeping this in the strategic stockpile. So you'll hear the $1 billion contract. This has nothing to do with what they make on an annual basis. It's more in alignment with $100 million. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that this $460 million was delivered back in 2018, and it's probably going to be some time, since this has a shelf life of 7 years, that they're going to see that back on the balance sheet again. Now, I do want to tell you that the trend, the technical analysis on this looked really solid, and more people like the Canadian military and others could be disclosed in this next earnings call, who have shown interest because this did get global awareness. They could also want to keep this TPOXX. So really important to understand that they not only accepted this in Europe, but there could be others that want to give this to their military, for example. So the CDC, in partnership with the FDA, has made it easier for healthcare providers to provide TPOXX treatment to patients with monkeypox. So it looks like the CDC understands, and this was July 22nd, that this is a painful process and that we've got it, but we're having trouble really getting it issued out. And it looks like they're working to address that. Now, I also wanted to pull up this article. Feel free to pause the screen. Like I said before, we're really not going to be talking about the vaccination section of this, but if you wanted to look this up and do a little research on your own, feel free to do that. Okay, so I want to talk about the price to sales trailing 12 months because valuations have been put into perspective for anyone who's trading any stock out there. What's the value? And will it hold that value? And over time, will it come back down? So buy low, sell high. That's the basic fundamental trading strategy. If you just really want to keep it simple. So where do you take profits? Where do you come back in later if you want to keep this as part of your portfolio? Now, this one could get really quiet, but we'll take a look. This right here is Siga, just to be perfectly clear on that. Now, let's take a look at Geovax because this one is at 36, like I was saying earlier in the video, 36. And yeah, of course, back here in 2021, around December timeframe, this was at 41. So it's definitely got squeeze potential, but is this higher than other stocks in the market? And, you know, I would say absolutely. You need to be aware of the risk of it being this high. So as long as you understand the risk and you've already made some money, anybody who's followed this channel has made massive money last week. 130% short interest is what was showing on iBorrowDesk. But I thought that was really interesting that they only showed us to the 26th. So when I went and checked on chartexchange.com, I actually seen 381% borrow fee. That means this is what you pay. And, you know, if you don't pay this back, then that's the fee to take out any of the available shares. So there's only 10,000 available shares left. And you can see this was as low as 70. And they've had to buy this back. They're not sure how long until they're going to have to, you know, repurchase these shares. But as this continues to climb, so does this borrow fee. And trust me, nobody wants to play with this borrow fee. And this does cause squeeze potential. So if you hear anybody out there say that this has massive squeeze potential, it does. It absolutely has everything necessary for squeeze potential. Now let's take a look at the charts because I want to back this up. This is in the 4-hour view. And I want to show you these spikes back here earlier because now we are to an extent where we've surpassed the first kind of heads up that we got that this was going to be a runner back here in the May timeframe. It has surpassed that, and now it's starting to get to these levels back here, previous levels. And if this turns into support, then you could see where this spikes, we could see potential all the way to maybe $8. I mean, easily could see this run up to $6. And I believe that's what you're hearing a lot of people say. Now, does this drop down before it spikes up? And that earnings could be the catalyst that causes this to pull back and then spike up. I'm not sure. We're going to have to continue to monitor this one. But if you did want to get in low, you would change this to the 30-minute time frame on your chart. And I would say, you know, nobody should be buying this above $3.84. So if you're buying this up here in the $4 range, I mean, you're just wasting your money. You should wait for this to pull back. Look for pullback opportunities. And of course, this is went as low as $3.57. $3.60. If you really want to be greedy with your money, then you wait for it to peak up here and pull back. And that's what happened. It hits the RSI indicator on the 30-minute chart. It pulls back not much right here to the 60 on the RSI. That's where you gobble it up. You wait for it to drop. You wait for it to confirm. And of course, you got about an hour to make this decision right here at 358. But you understand the squeeze potential here and that this could potentially go to $6. So that is your upside potential. But remember, when we first talked about this, this was back here at $1.50. I mean, we sounded the alarm back here pre-market down here under $1. So most of you got in at 110. I'm hoping you're in under $1.10. I said to go ahead and take some off the table at $3.26. It got bought up at $2.50. This took a huge drop, and now we see this massive run here from the low point. This climbed up to about, what is that? That is about 74%. I mean, this has just been, it's been crazy. It's hard to not want to be in this at these levels still for that squeeze potential. Now, Siga, I mean, it's been a lot more calm. And calm, I just wanted to make sure we covered that FDA piece, because here, that drop off, you see in the 4-hour chart, how much time did you have to take profits off the table at $22? Before this just showed that it was really meeting some resistance. Here, the RSI indicator, you could see how elevated that was, and you had time to say in the 4-hour chart, okay, I see it. And then this fell all the way down, and we've got a trend line here. It busted below 1450 on the trend line and fell as far as $13.50, almost going back here to the lows of $12.05 when we started talking about this. This was also, this is one you wanted to grab under, I think we said in the last video, 1547. For those of you that don't like penny stocks and you wanted something that was going to make you feel a little bit more comfortable, this was a great opportunity here. And you can see this trend line was just really going up until we got that FDA news, and I believe that's the reason it pulled back. This could have continued to climb. And now I expect that it's just going to reset a little bit here, 1729. If I was buying this, I would not get in any higher than 1726. I would be patient, wait for this to pull back. Same thing, as it goes over the RSI, it presents buying opportunities. Now, of course, that earnings could also be a point where it pulls back, just because these have been running up so much in the last week. This week's going to be very critical to just put in those stop losses. If you buy this here at $17 and say you buy it at $17.26, I would definitely put a stop loss in here, maybe at $17 even, or I would buy it at $17 even and then put a stop loss at like $16.80. Like, I would not take a loss on this, and that's assuming that you're using those profits and you were in and you had gains all last week. So I would just continue to enjoy this, because these are the kind of plays that really get you ahead of the S&P 500, that get you ahead of those major indices. That's all I got. I know this one was a little bit longer, but I think we covered some great information. Be sure to leave a comment in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.